Hello everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on the Laurena pendant, and this pendant is using some of the beads from Miyuki Beads' most recent collection called Mountain Vineyard Collection. And this collection is in collaboration with Gina from Orchid and Opal Jewelry and Beads, and so beautiful. I think it's the colors are just stunning. This one is not from the collection. I'm doing the tutorial using these beads because some of you have told me that when I use the darker beads that are so sparkly, you have some trouble seeing what I'm doing. So I did it in a lighter color so you could see, so you could see everything. But this is the gorgeous pendant. Isn't that beautiful? All right, so I'm going to link the collection in the description box below the video. If it's still available, I'll check. And if not, they have a page where they have all the beads individually, so I'll link that as well. All right, so without further delay, let's get a materials list going and get started. Okay, let's get a materials list going. So everything you need for this, except for the wire for the necklace and the crimp beads, is in the collection. So you have everything you need. If you don't want to use the wire and you just want to do thread, you can do that. Just see how it hangs. It's a pretty substantial pendant, so I was thinking wire might, be better, but you can check that out yourself. So you need a 10 by 14 millimeter oval fancy stone. You'll need some Chatons. You're going to need 4 of them. Now I'm going to list everything in the description box below the video and links to individual items as well. So if you don't have the collection, you want all these gorgeous colors, you can get those. And I'll also put the colors to this one in the description box below the video as well. All right, so we have the oval, we have the Chatons, we've got an 11-0 seed bead, 15-0 seed bead, bugle bead, 2 millimeter fire polish. This is not from the collection. I ran out of those, so I just took these from my stash. But you have them in the collection. 4 millimeter bicone, 6 millimeter pearl, mini duo. This clasp from the collection. I've got a stop bead. If you're doing the wire, you'll need some wire, some very fine, thin wire, beading wire, and some crimp beads. I suggest if you're doing the wire that you have these. These are so good. I love these. They make all the difference when you're beading something on wire. All right, so did I say stop bead? Anything else will be in the description box below the video. Sizes, shapes, colors, places to purchase beads if you like. Any information I have, discount codes. I'll put a link to the collection if it's still available in the description box as well. All right, so let's get started. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to embellish each one of the Chatons, and those are the crystals that are on the outside of the piece. So thread your needle with about 1.5 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, and leave enough of a tail to sew in. So here's my Chaton. This particular Chaton in the collection has 2 holes here and 2 holes on the other side, and none on this side. Okay. Now the one I'm using is slightly larger than the one in the collection, but the hole placement is exactly the same. So I'm just going to take my needle and thread. I'm going to sew through the end hole. And one of the end holes like that. Right through to the other side. I'm going to pick up an 11-0. Exiting up here. I'm going to sew through the same hole that I'm exiting and out the end again. And we'll pop these up when we get to it. So now I have 1 bead on. Pick up an 11-0. Exiting here. This hole right here, I'm going to sew back through that hole on the diagonal so that my needle is exiting the hole next to the bead I put on, and here's the bead that's going to go right here. So just like that. So I just went from here to on the diagonal, came out here, pick up another 11-0, exiting right here. I'm just going to sew straight down like that. Oops. So now I have 3 beads on. I'm going to pick up an 11-0. I'm going to sew through the same hole I'm exiting and on the diagonal. So I'm exiting this hole here. So here, through here, and across until I come out of that hole right there. So from the back, this is what it looks like. I have 4 beads on, and the thread path here is there's a straight line, and there's like kind of an X in the middle. So I'm exiting a hole right here. Let's add some beads on. So I'm exiting the hole right now, and I'm just going to look at this bead, and I'm going to make sure that it's the thread isn't twisted. You can always pull from the bottom too if it loosens up. I'm just going to sew through, so I'm mixing the hole here. I'm just going to sew through the bead. Just like that. And I'm going to pick up a fire polish, the 3mm fire polish, and I'm going to situate this bead so that that's right, there you go. So the thread isn't twisted, and I'm going to sew through this one. So just going to put a fire polish in between those 2 11-0s. Next up, I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s, the 2mm fire polish and 2 11-0s, and I'm going to sew through the next bead. Just making sure that I haven't twisted it. So we're just placing a round of beads in between the 11-0s that we placed on there. Okay, so next up, I'm going to pick up a fire polish, and I'm going to sew through the next bead. Like that. And you want to make sure that these are snug. We're going to go through them again. You're going to reinforce here. You want them to be as close together as possible. Now, because this chaton is slightly larger, the beads may not be as close as they would be on yours, but we're very close. So 2 11-0s of fire polish and 2 11-0s. I'm going to sew through that last bead. Just making sure I'm going to straighten it out. There we go. Like that. So it looks like. And then I'm just going to go around all my beads again and reinforce. Now when I reinforce this, I do it on the back because I want to make sure that they're staying in place. So I hold my thumb on it like this, and then I'm going to reinforce, and I want to make sure they're staying sort of at the edge, because if you pull too much, they'll pull in. This is just the little part that's a little bit picky, but you'll get it. I'm going to put another round on it also. So just reinforce that and exit a fire polish. So this is what it looks like. I'm reinforced all the way around, and I'm exiting one of the fire polish. Now I'm just going to turn it over to the front now. So I'm exiting this fire polish bead, and that's just how it should look. They should be pretty close together and really at the very back edge there. So now I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s, and I'm exiting the fire polish. I'm just going to sew through the next fire polish. Like that. I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s, and I'm going to sew through the next fire polish. Make sure they pop in front, just like that. So you just want to do that 2 more times, and then you'll have a second row on. So just 3 11-0s, go through the next fire polish and do it again. Down to the end, I'm picking up my last 3 11-0s, and I'm going to sew through this fire polish. So that's the last fire polish I'm going to sew through. So I have 4 groups of the 3 11-0s, and then I'm just going to advance my needle through the next 3 11-0s, just like that. That's what I have. I'm going to take the bugle bead, and you're going to find the straightest, most even edges, ones with the straightest, most even edges, and you're exiting this group of 3, sew through the next group of 3 11-0s. So you're going to place a little bugle bead right there. Do that again. Just find a really nice one. Sometimes, the edges, are cracked or they're not as straight. So I just look through them until I find the best. So I have 2 on. So do that 2 more times, and then we'll continue. Okay, so I've got all 4 of my chatons embellished. So of course you're just going to sew in your threads. I just went ahead and sewed them in. Make sure that you want to make sure you can get through these fire polish beads again, but you also want to make sure that this is a nice snug unit because it's going to be attached to the center stone. So you want to make sure it's, it's not loose. So this is what we have so far. So get all 4 of those done and then come back and we will continue. Let's start work on the center bezel. So thread your needle with about close to 3 feet of thread. Put on a stop bead around the middle. You can have a little more coming out after the stop bead because that's going to be for the bezel. And this is the other, the thread that's on the needle right now is going to be sort of the base for the bezel. So I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead, an 11-0 and a mini duo, and I just did that 4 times. I started with an 11-0, ended with a mini, just like that. I'm going to sew those into a circle. Just going to sew up the first couple beads just to get it started. like that. And then you just want to reinforce this all the way around, exiting the bottom hole of a mini. So we're exiting the bottom hole of a mini. I'm just going to sew through the top hole. It's going to set me up to put some more beads on. Next up, I'm going to pick up a Vexolo, a Delica, and a Vexolo. Notice how I'm picking them up. I'm just going to sew through the top hole of the next mini. This is what it looks like. Okay, so before I go on, I just want you to make sure that your tail thread, the thread with the stop bead, is up on top. You don't want it to go on the bottom and get twisted. So you just, sort of keep an eye on it, because that's going to be where we're going to put the bezel on. So next up, I'm going to pick up a mini duo, an 11-0, and a mini. And I'm exiting the top hole of the mini. I'm going to sew through the next one. And then I'm just going to repeat what I did. I'm going to pick up a Vexolo, Delica Vexolo, sew through the top hole of this mini. Then I'm going to pick up a mini duo, an 11-0 mini duo, and sew through this one. Coming down to my mini duo, 11-0 mini duo, exiting this mini. I'm going to sew through this one. And then I'm going to go straight through to the Vexolo. And then I'm just going to reinforce everything I just put on, exiting the Vexolo. Okay, so I've reinforced. And don't worry when you're reinforcing if you kind of lose your place and you end up going, around, a little bit more. It's fine. Just make sure you're exiting the Vexolo here. So I just want you to sew this thread in now. We don't need this thread anymore. So I usually sew in by, let's see, I'm going to go through, let me turn it on the back. I'm going to go through this mini, like that, just to give you an idea, get you started. And then I'm going to go through this. So the top hole of that mini, I'm going to go through the bottom hole. And then I'm just going to sew around these beads here. So the super duos on the 11-0s with putting a couple of half-hitch knots in. And then I'm just going to clip off that thread. Okay, so I've sewn in that thread, and now I've taken off my stop bead and threaded my tail thread onto a needle. And I'm exiting an 11-0 right here in the center. The goal is for us to get through the top hole of a Vexolo. So I'm just going to move my thread around. So wherever you're exiting, if you happen to not be exiting there, just make sure you're going to end up here. So the way I'm going to do that is, here I'm exiting this 11-0. I'm going to sew through this mini, the bottom hole, and then I'm going to sew through the top hole of the mini. So I'm just going to work my way around, and then I'm going to sew through these three. So the mini duo, 11-0 mini duo, and then I'm going to go through. So I'm coming through the bottom hole of this mini. I'm going to go through the top hole of this one and the Vexolo. Like that. And then I'm going to sew through the top hole of the Vexolo. And now I'm set up to put some more beads on. Now, wherever you were, if you happen not to be, like I said, exiting where I was, just make sure you're exiting the top hole of Vexolo, so we're all in the same place. Okay, so next up we're going to pick up a fire polish. So we're exiting the Vexolo here, top hole. I'm just going to pick up my 2mm fire polish, and I'm going to sew through the next mini duo. Just going to place that on like so. I'm going to take one of my units, the Chatons, and I'm just going to sew through the fire polish on the Chaton, like that, and then I'm going to sew through the next top hole of the next mini. So adding a fire polish, so I'm really actually adding fire polish on all the way around, but I am in 4 spots. I'm going to be adding the component right there. Okay, so this is what I have so far. Next up, I'm going to pick up a 2mm fire polish, and I'm going to put it right there. And then I'm going to pick up another one of my units by the fire polish bead and sew through this one, the Vexolo, like that. So you're just going to do that all the way around. And don't worry if there's a little thread. We want this to kind of sit above it a bit. So when we pull and, you know, continue, we're going to make sure that you see that? It's not like that, but it's more like this. And it will all go into place as we add the beads on. So next, you know, you're just going to do what we've been doing. So you're just going to pick up a fire polish, sew through here, you know, the next mini, and then put on your unit, fire polish, put on your unit, and then come back, and we'll continue. Okay, so I've added all the fire polish and the units on, and you'll be exiting one of the fire polish that's under one of the units. I'm on a side unit here. And like I said, don't worry if you have a little bit of thread there. We're gonna, as we sew, we're gonna make sure that these kind of push up a little bit on these ends. Okay, so it should look like this, and it should start to have like a little bit of a cup shape in the middle. Not super, you know, super tight, but about like so. Okay, next up we're going to add some more of the 2 millimeter fire polish bead. So I'm exiting the fire polish bead under one of my Chaton units. I'm just going to pick up 3 fire polish, and I'm going to sew through the fire polish that's under the next unit. I'm just going to put 3 beads on right there. I'm going to pick up 3 of my fire polish. Exiting here, just going to sew through the fire polish that's under the next Chaton unit. You know, so as we add these, it's going to start cupping a little more, and it's going to pull these units in a bit. So just do that 2 more times. 3 fire polish through this one, 3 fire polish through this one. Picking up my last 3 fire polish, coming through the fire polish that's under that's the original one. And so when I kind of give that just a little bit of a pull, I have 3, 6, 9, 12 fire polish that I just put on. Exiting the interior fire polish here, I'm just going to sew up through those first 3 beads that I put on, the first 3 fire polish. Make sure you don't get caught. So you'll be exiting one of the groups of the 3 fire polish beads you just put on. Okay, so we've got all our fire polish on, and we're Xing a group of 3. So I've placed my stone in, and you want to make sure you place it in straight. It's not going to stay right now. You'll hold it with your thumb, and you can play with it as you go. So you're just going to place it so it looks nice and placed nicely. Just like that. You're exiting the 3 fire polish. I'm going to pick up 3 11-0s, and I'm going to sew through the next 3 fire polish. And I'm just holding on to the stone. So just like that. I'm going to do that again. 3 11-0s through the next 3 fire polish. Can't get them all at once. Do them a couple at a time or 1 at a time. So like that. So you're just going to do that all the way around. Okay, coming down to my last 3 11-0s. Exiting these 3, I'm going to sew through the last 3 to get those 3 11-0s on, and adjust a little bit. If your stone is moved a little bit, just move it back. You want to make sure that you've got your 3 sort of sitting nicely on each edge there, just like that. And then I'm just going to sew through that first 11-0 of that first group of 3. This is what I have so far. So I'm exiting the first 11-0 of a group of the 3 11-0s you put on, and just make sure when you look at your piece, give it a little pull. Does it look good? Yeah, it's looking good. Okay, I'm going to pick up a 15-0, and I'm going to skip this one, that middle 11-0, and I'm going to sew through the next one. So just like that, but you want to make sure that it's going to pop in front. So hold it with your thumb and make sure you see how it's sitting in there like that. So just like that. This is what I have so far. I have one little 15-0 in between these 2 11-0s right here, so you see how that looks. Now I'm going to pick up a 15-0, a bugle bead, and a 15-0, And I'm going to sew through that first 11-0 of the next group of 3. Like that. To the next group of 3 11-0s. See that? And then I'm going to pick up my 15-0 and I'm going to skip this one and sew through the next 11-0. Like that. And you want to make sure that 15-0 is sitting down on the stone. This is what it looks like. Do that one more time. 15-0 bugle bead and a 15-0. I'm going to sew through the first 11-0 of the next group of 3 11-0s and make sure that pops into place. I'm going to pick up a 15-0 and sew through that 11-0. So skipping the middle one, sewing through the end one. You just want to make sure that you're, staying nice and straight and your stone looks good. So do that 2 more times and then we'll continue. Okay, coming down to my last 15-0 bugle bead 15-0. So I've put that little 15-0 here. I'm exiting here. Just going to go do the same thing. I'm just going to sew right through that first 11-0. And then pushing that in place like so. And this is what it looks like. So now you can go around and reinforce all the beads you just put on, and you can clip off this thread. Just a note, I came all the way around again, and to clip off, to sew this thread in, so I reinforced everything, and it's nice and snug and looks great. So when I came out of this 11-0 over here, I just went through the fire polish bead. I just jumped over here, and then I'm just going to put a half hitch knot here and there, and then I can clip off my thread. Okay, this is what we have so far. So we're going to add the pearls now. So just to show you on the unit, see we've got 4 pearls there. So I'm going to thread my needle with a couple of feet of thread, put on a stop bead, and leave enough of a tail to sew in. So I'm just going to come through one of the fire polish bead on the side of this unit here, the Chaton unit. I'm going to pick up an 11-0, a pearl, and an 11-0, so it's a 6mm pearl. And then I'm going to sew through the fire polish bead and the next unit. Let's see if I can get my... I'm just holding this in a very weird way, but you got the idea. So when I pull, it's going to put that pearl on, just like that. And then because I'm working on that bottom row, I'm just going to turn my piece over and I'm just going to advance through all the beads until I get to the next space where I want to put a pearl. So that's here. So I'm just going through the next 3 11-0s. It's just easier to work on the back at this point. Through this fire polish. Through these 3 11-0s. If you need to change your needle size, you can. At this point, go to a 12. So I'm just going to sew through. I'm going to go change my needle size. I'm going to sew through this 11-0 until I'm exiting this fire polish. Okay, so just to show you, I changed my needle size because I was having trouble getting through. So I'm using a size 12 beading needle now, and look how easy that goes through. So yeah, don't force your needle because you'll just break beads. How do I know that? I do it all the time. So I get that through. Hands are just a little slippery, but that went through just fine. And then when I turn it this way, I can add my 11-0, my 6mm pearl, and my 11-0. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to sew down through, I'm just going to hold it up like this fire polish of the next unit, like that. Now I have 2 of my beads on, so I'm just going to, again, I'm going to turn it on the back, go through till I get to here, put another pearl, etc., until you have all 4 pearls on. Okay, so I'm putting on my last 11-0 pearl 11-0, sewing through this fire polish. And I can't tell you what a difference it made using the size 12 beading needle. You know, also, if you are, if you're having trouble getting through some of your beads, you can also change your thread from like 8-pound to 4-pound or 6-pound, when you're, because we added a thread here, so it would be fine to do that as well. All right, so this is what I have so far. This is what we have so far. So I'm going to give you a little optional step that I'm going to talk you through because I've already done it because I wanted to check it out. So if you want to pull, you want to tighten this up a little bit, where these connect, you could. This is what you can do. So I've just threaded a needle with about 1.5 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, left enough of a tail to sew in. So I've sewn, you're going to sew through a center 11-0 right there. And then you're going to sew through this bugle, coming out here, and back through the 11-0. So it's going to kind of connect this bugle and this 11-0. And then you're just going to sew through this 11-0, the 15-0 bugle bead 15-0, this 11-0, and this one. And you're going to do the same thing over here. You're going to put the bugle, you're going to go through the bugle, come around till you get to the next one. And I would just suggest that you use, you could use a size 11 or 12 beading needle, and just go through one bead at a time. It goes through very easily if you do that. So that kind of makes it, nice and rigid if yours was a little bit loose. So that's kind of an optional step you can decide on if you like. All right, so here we go. Let's add the bail. So all I've done here is I've threaded a needle with about 3 feet of thread, maybe a little less. Put on a stop bead, left enough of the tail to sew in, and then I just came through the 3. So I'm holding it this way. You can actually hold it this way too, but I'm holding it this way. I came through the 3 11-0s on the side of the top unit, added 4 11-0 seed beads like that, and then came through the 3 on the other side. So I've just come through 2. I'm going to go through 3 like that. So I've just added sort of a base for my herringbone. So now I'm going to turn it on the back. I'm going to sew up through these 3 on the back. Like that. And I'm going to hop over to these 2. Like that. And when I turn it to the front, this is what it looks like. I don't know if you can hear my kitty. She's hungry, so she's asking me for food. All right, so we're exiting right here. Herringbone, I'm exiting this top 11-0. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s. I'm going to sew down through this one. Like that. And then I'm going to go up the 2 on this side. So that's going to start my herringbone. I got a knot in my thread. So let's do that again. 2 11-0s, down 1. And then up 2. So you're just going to continue that until you have a nice size bail going. I did 14, altogether 14 herringbone stitches, which included these 2 setup beads. So 14 to, and I put that, I wanted it to fit in between the pearls. I probably could have done 1 less so that it didn't move. So you see, I just wanted it to go right around the pearls. Yes, I probably could have done 1 less. But you can do it any way you like. You can put it over the pearl. I liked it just in between the pearl, like that. All right, so do your herringbone and come back, and we'll sew it to the other side of the bail. Okay, so I have all my herringbone stitches on. I'm making this slightly smaller because I'm going to put this one on a ribbon, which I think would be so pretty. So either way, whatever size your bail you have, you're just going to do your herringbone stitches, and then we're going to turn it on the back, and I'm just exiting one end. I'm just going to sew through the fire polish right there. And then back up the other side of that bail. When I pull, it's just going to attach it, just like so. And all you're going to do at this point is you can sew up a couple of beads down and around just to reinforce it, and then tie your thread off, and you'll have your bail on. Okay, so I'm going to put the clasp on the end here. So I've used a wire here. It's not included in the collection. However, I think this is a pretty substantial pendant. I think it needs wire rather than thread. So, you know, you'll need wire and you'll need a couple of crimp beads. So I just kind of made myself my, you know, a chain of, you know, 6mm pearls, 11/0, and the 4mm bicone. I just repeated it all the way down. You can really do anything you like. And then I put, so here's the end. I ended with an 11/0. I put on my crimp bead. I came through the clasp, and then I'm going to, I've come through the opening on the clasp. Then I'm going to go back down through the crimp bead, the pearl, and just a couple of beads. Maybe I'll exit. Can I get through the bicone? Through the bicone. Like that. And I'm just going to give this a little pull. Like that. And then you're just going to take your crimp tool. I make sure it's like right, you know, it's situated nicely, so like so. I don't have a crimp tool, so I'm just going to take my point nose or flat nose pliers. Just carefully don't crush your bead. I'm just going to crush the crimp bead. So now I have one end of my clasp on. Okay, so for the other side, you're going to do exactly the same thing. So see here, I've just put my wire through my crimp bead, like so. So this is what it's going to look like. So get that part done and come back, and we're back and we're done. And I just love how it came out. I'm so happy with it. I absolutely adore Gina's color. She did such a beautiful job choosing these beads. I hope that doing it in the lighter color with less shiny beads and sparkly beads was helpful for those of you who sometimes have trouble seeing what I'm doing. This one, it's so gorgeous. It's just that it was very, very sparkly. So I hope that was helpful. Okay, so I hope you make this pendant. I'll be posted on Facebook. I want to thank you so much for being with me. Take care. See you next time.